Hello there, my name is Anthony Barocas for StreamTech. Today I have a wonderful conversation with Danny Dodge, a fellow live streamer, content producer, but also an inventor, a problem solver, and a broadcast technician of many years. Kind of a kindred spirit in terms of finding something that you like to do, and when you're doing it, you don't really recognize time has gone by. Let me bring Danny out. Thank you for being on today's show. For the people who are watching, tell me a little bit about your background, which I believe is probably a little storied, and
we'll try to make it a little story.
and how you get into streaming.
Well, okay, started out in college not knowing what I wanted to do. A friend told me, hey, you ought to try this TV class. It's fun and it's easy to get a good grade. Well, I had problems getting good grades all the way through high school, so I decided I'll do it. And then, oddly enough, it stuck, but then I transitioned into being a commercial photographer, which was a really good thing because it taught me really intricacies of color and lighting and all that. And then, and I'm not going to tell you all this through this story, but then I transitioned back into video. It was even a headline news anchor at one point in time, really odd situation there. Stayed there about a year, got done with that. And then when I got back out, a friend of mine said, hey, I'm shooting an outdoor show. Would you help out? And I said, sure. I fell in love with that. And for the next 20 years, I was filming network television shows all around the world. So I've got a lot of experience, but I've also got that background in lighting and dealing with color in ways that would drive anyone else crazy. But now guess what I'm doing? Live streaming, and I think that's probably why we're here to talk today.
Yeah, and so you come from more of a broadcast background and with a deep-seated experience in photography, which I think a lot, the vast majority of people who come into streaming, they don't come from photography, and they generally don't come from broadcast. Broadcast people sort of stay in broadcast at that end, and I just literally told my camera to start tracking me.
Well, that's what it's all about. It's about us, right? Oh, that's the fun of this whole thing. As long as you can keep a smile on your face as it goes off.
Don't wave your hands around when using new technology.
That's awesome. I love that. I might just do that for fun. If I get a camera that will do that, I go, well, I don't know. And
so, I myself have been involved in broadcast and, the production trucks and things like that. And,
wow.
and operated camera, technical director and things like that. And I kind of got into it more because the work that I was doing for broadcast also lent to corporate, and then corporate lent to they want to do live streaming. And I kind of just led in that direction. I mean, I could still operate long lens camera and things like that, but at the same time, I tend to be more of a gearhead, and I don't know if you're much of a gearhead per se, but I like the engineering aspect of it and the building and making things work.
Yeah, I say everything I do I hate, but I get into it. I'm ADD, so it's like, okay, it's like a train, you get on the track and you just start going down and all of a sudden you're running into everything. And I ran into live streaming. I did my first live stream back in, holy mackerel, 2009, I think it was. And that was before it really was a thing. I had a friend who was doing podcasting, and he was so early in the game that he actually appeared on the board behind whoever it was, big name there at the Apple release of some new product. And so he kind of charged me up on that, and I actually had a sponsor for that stupid show right there at first. I only did one episode because I realized how much could go wrong in that episode. And it was basically Comcast at the time, and Comcast was, their streaming was fluctuating up and down. At moments you'd be like, this is cool, and at other moments you'd be like, I'm going to kill somebody. So, we deal with that even today, but it's less of a headache, I think. So, yeah. And, your broadcast history, man, it serves you well, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, the show yesterday was about NDI, which I think is a great technology, and it's starting to get more widespread traction at the higher end, but at the same time, it's also being incorporated into more, lower end products, and I don't mean that disparagingly, but I mean more products that are generally affordable to consumers and podcasters and things like that. And whereas NDI used to be at the $1,000 and up level, now you can get the OBSBot camera for $400, $500, and it's got NDI on it, or you can get the Mevo Start for $399 and it's got NDI in it. And I think that really does put that capable technology into a lot more hands.
Yeah, definitely. It makes it almost too attractive, and when you can get on Amazon and have it here the next day, man, it makes it hard not to stay in trouble with the wife all the time. I swear. I don't know. It's one of those things. It's a double-edged sword when you can actually go and buy something and you need really quickly without even having to leave the house. And I could literally, if I wanted to, get it here in the same day. It does solve some issues. I actually almost bought a cable just for this, but ended up kind of going back to the old roots, where all it is a cable from the camera going into a USB into my computer, and I'm rolling. And I haven't done that in a long time. Generally, we got with the reduction of all the sizes of all these different products, we can have them all on one desk. And when I got in this originally, what I had on my desk, actually right back here, I've got a Yolobox Ultra. I got a couple of monitors, a computer. There's just about nothing I cannot do that I was doing on a $2 million system back when I first started this business. It's absolutely amazing. I'm sure you've got plenty of stories on that one too, huh?
Yeah, and having been in it for so long, I have the same thing. It used to be, a truck full of gear, or just tape for corporate events, just tables and tables full of gear. And then, the YOLO box came out, and it was like, we talk about all-in-one computers. It was sort of like an all-in-one device, switching the cameras, doing the titles, doing the recording, encoding the stream, and handling comments, all in this one tablet was just pretty amazing.
Yeah. I literally, when I first saw it, I was like, gimmick. It isn't going to do that and do it well. And, along the way, as you're developing products, I mean, the cutting edge products are always, they're tough because in order to get that advancement, you have to go through some struggles. And, through the years, YOLO has actually done that. And, but they've always been responsive to what people are asking and what they're needing. I think one of the most brilliant things that they could ever do is listen to the front line, which is you and I, on what we actually need. And when they provide that type of thing, they create a sense of excitement. What am I going to be able to do with this thing next? So in a way of marketing, these guys have totally nailed it. You just have to be ready. On certain situations, you're going to have to find that bump in the road and say, well, we're going to wait through it. You don't get angry about it. You go, hey, this is cool, and I'm going to have the next best thing in the world. I'm going to be on the cutting edge myself, and I don't even have to do the work. I'll let some other company do it for me. I've got a full-on system over here to my right, which is it's an ATEM Extreme. I mean, it is decked out with all the goodies. I mean, actually, I've got toys and things here to show if I have to, but it's got instant replay, all kinds of the stuff that the YOLO box has in one little box. So I haven't even actually touched that system, I think, in probably a year. It's been a long time, and it kind of feels bad because it does some amazing stuff. But for things that I do around here, when I'm wanting to do it really quickly, God, the YOLO box Ultra is good. Now, so for those who don't know what we're talking about, this is the YOLO box Pro. It looks like a monitor, but this thing is screamer. It does amazing things. It's all-in-one production, right in one box. So
and I think YOLO was the first company to jump into these all-in-one waters. But I will say, though, I think they were sort of preceded by all of the different solutions that were available for tablets. There's Switcher Studio, Teradek had Live to Air, which then became AirMix. There's Cinemaker, there's Top Director, and those are all on an iPad or a tablet.
Really? So you know more about this than I ever do then. And
they've been around for years. Like, I started using Switcher Studio back in 2016, 17. And the really nice thing was it was a very polished interface, and it did the titles, the switching, 9 cameras. It was all wireless. and recording and streaming and comment. It did everything. But the thing that people would always ask for is, how can I connect my DSLR? That's the thing that people are always asking. How can I plug in my DSLR? I want a better looking camera than the iPhone, especially when it came out, back in 17.
Sure.
And that's always been the missing piece. It's like, yes, a tablet has the power. iPads, whatever, the processing in a tablet is capable, but there was no way to bridge the gap between tablet devices and real cameras. And then YOLObox came out and says, okay, here's a tablet with HDMI inputs. And they were the first one to do that. And I think that's what really broke into new ground where there was nobody else.
Yeah. There's too many cameras out there without the SDI, which would be optimal in this situation because we run into problems where we have to sync the audio and the voice and the picture together. But they've done a good job of allowing us to actually resync that in the device as well. So I love the fact that they're not just making a whiz bang cool thing. They're actually doing stuff that helps us to advance and get further down the line quicker, and opening up to an entire. I mean, there's so many things in live streaming that you can do and you make money with. But if you are more efficient, you have the tools that you need to really do the job and seem professional in it. You're going to come across in a way that's going to allow you to step above the rest. And these little devices are really doing that. Now, the other thing is they're becoming small enough that we can move around with them. Who would ever go out and try to actually move with a camera and a live stream switcher, from location to location without having to drag all this stuff and do all these crazy things? Well, small switchers like this, you mount them right on the camera as if they're a monitor, and bam, you're in business. Really cool.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point. Is that with the ATEM hardware that you have, it's like, yes, it's very, very capable, but it's not as portable. But at the same time, like what you said before, these tablet solutions, and I'm going to include the Switcher Studio and things like that, they make production really easy, in terms of I want to do this, tap, 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 I'm done. Whereas doing it on a computer, we can always say a computer-based solution is more powerful, but it's also a lot more complex and clunky. And for us, for most people, I think, who do streaming, they don't necessarily need that level of complexity and capability. Simple, I want two pictures next to each other. Tap, tap, done.
Sure.
And that I think really does, propel these products forward, is the fact that they make it so easy.
They do, yeah. It's I've always, back before the YOLObox, before at least I found out about it, because it's been around a while. I used to just wish that Black Magic on their HM switchers would give you a touch, this is a touch screen right here, give you the switching, like the multi-screens, the multicam, or whatever we call that. Okay, sometimes this doesn't work right, but allow it so you can just touch the image rather than going, okay, that's camera one, okay, camera one. Because my mind, I am so visual that even like when I'm out producing a big television commercial, national television commercial or something like that, I have my wife there, and she's literally reading the script and reading whatever it is that I need so I can let this thing translate the audio into the creative realm. But when I have to stop and I change over to the paperwork, creativity's gone. So once again, it's what YOLO's done is really made it for visual people like me, made it simple and easy. If I like that shot, I tap it. Whereas over on the ATEM, if I like that shot, I got to figure out what camera it is and where's the button. So and I love what they're doing. And I've even got one of these. So I do, I do such a wide range of things. This little guy right here, and I've got it just connected on the strap here. Let me get that off of here. This little bitty device here is a microphone, and you can put it on your collar. You can put a lavalier onto it. Now, before this, I was always using my Sennheiser microphones, my wireless microphones, to be able to connect back to the camera. I don't always need to record directly in camera, especially if I'm recording like a scratch track on the camera, so where I can sync audio after the fact. This little guy, it's a Hollyland something, Lark or whatever. it actually records in the microphone. So it allows me, if I'm recording with 3 or 4 GoPros, or like we used to do TV shows where we're in a car and we have wires strung all over that darn car to capture the shots. And with the little devices like that, we could stick a mic on each person. We wouldn't necessarily be able to monitor that. That's the only bad thing. But we could record all that stuff, bring it back into, let's say, DaVinci Resolve, which is an editing program. Let that computer synchronize it up and then start editing. And it was just absolutely freeing for me. And, you wouldn't do that probably on a really big production, because you do want to have, the ability to monitor all audio and adjust things and everything. But for guys who are doing podcasts and they're doing it with a GoPro or 2, this makes it really cool. So I love the way the items out there are suddenly reducing in size, taking on more tasks to make it easier for all of us.
Absolutely. And, we talk about the YOLO box and the tablet solutions. And I also, like YOLO has had this solution to themselves, or this, combination of tablet and hardware interface to themselves. They've been the only ones swimming in the pond, so to speak.
Yeah, they sure
and,
have.
And I can just imagine all these other manufacturers are looking at that going, like you said initially, like, I don't know. I don't know about that. I figure Atomos was looking at that, and all these other monitor manufacturers. I don't know. But
I'm
then
sure
Magewell, at the end of last year, Magewell jumped into the same waters. They're like, okay, here we go. Here's our all-in-one tablet with HDMI inputs and switching and all of that. And I think it's like important in 2 ways. 2, it's competition. So now these 2 products are going to be like, oh, well, the Magewell has remote control with a phone. Well, guess what? YOLO added remote control with a phone. But it's going to be like competition. And competition is great for us because it makes it easier for us.
It is. I was very excited when I saw Magewell jump into this. And it's really funny. And I know this because I'm an inventor. It's not always the guy that jumps in first that really wins out. And it's a sad fact. But once they set that, kind of like the format, and they figure out how all the intricacies that are going to come in your face and cause issues, the next guy comes along and he says, "Oh, thank you for all that," and then he moves forward. And so plus with one company being stuck in a particular, let's say, a design fashion, or they've designed from ground up. The other company comes in and says, "Okay, we need this," so we design around all those wires that need to be put in there just to get to this. So they eliminate a lot of that structure, and they can do it faster, more efficiently, and then suddenly you've got a product that just really does what it needs to do. So sometimes, as a company, you almost have to say, okay, we did our R&D early on, and we've done a lot of transitions into this new technology. We may need to just rethink things and bring out a new product that actually eliminates all that wiring that didn't need to be happening to get to this certain point. And so it could be the possibility that Magewell at this point, once they get to the next level, and like every tool, a tool, like if I got a wrench and I got a hammer, okay, I could take the wrench and bang it and nail in a nail, but it doesn't work quite as good. Right. So if they come out, Magewell right now, they have a tool that works for certain things, for certain projects, right? And the same situation, YOLO Box with their Ultra has come out with something that works almost a little differently for different projects, right? So once I think Magewell moves into the zone where they're actually competing, in a way they're competing right now with YOLO, but when they put more inputs in there, boom, things are going to happen. So I would, I'm hoping that Frank and the other guys are listening to some of this and saying, okay, makes good sense. We need to rethink things, and in order to stay competitive, which I would love to stay with the YOLO Box. I guess in ways I'm loyal, and I would like to see them move forward. They put a lot into this, and they're good people. But if Magewell comes out with that next device, you're almost going to have to say which one works best for me. So I hate doing that, but it's reality.
I think you make several great points. There's different tools for different tasks. I always say the same thing. People always ask me, what's the best camera? I'm like, there is no best camera. The different cameras for different tasks. And the same thing, with these tools. It's like, if you need multi-channel instant replay, that's what the YOLOBox Ultra can do and the Magewell can't. If you want to distribute tasks or control the device over the internet, well, the Magewell can do that, the YOLOBox can't. So there's different tools for different tasks. But I think, like you said, they enable these companies to leapfrog each other. I saw what you did. I think I can do that better. But then I also think now that there's two companies playing in this pond, I think other companies are going to be like, oh, okay, I guess it's a legitimate thing. It's a legitimate category.
Yeah.
More people are going to join the fray. And I think that's just going to really be exciting to see who's going to be number 3.
Well, I've got a, this is funny. I just keep going, okay, when's Atomos really going to get into this? Because I've got an Atomos right now that records, it records 4K and it records unbelievable high definition, 900 plus megabytes per second just for 4K recording. And, but it can also take 4 SDI inputs and record 4 1080 inputs at the same time. Record it ISO, and they can also record the program out, and you can switch on it. It literally has 4 different videos that you can just tap on and do that. I've actually never used that function because what I'm doing is I've got cinema cameras that I use, and rather than recording in the cinema camera, I want to record in RAW, so I record on that Atomos, and that's a whole nother realm. When people say RAW, it may not speak to them at all, but RAW is amazing. It's almost like shooting on film negative. Because you can capture such a wide range of lights to dark and the color depth and things that you can work with. It's amazing. Okay, so we won't go into that one. We're talking about small technology.
Actually, I do want to jump on that because I see a lot of people look at the YOLOBox and say, can I apply a LUT to it and things like that. So I think you're actually really hitting the nail on the head because Atomos has the technology to do multiple inputs. They can do the switching, but they also have the raw recording. So if you take, what these other two companies are doing, and then you put the Atomos spin on it, Atomos is going to come and say, oh, okay, well, we can do the multi-camera switching and we can add some titles and streaming, but we're also going to allow you to bring in raw 10-bit and record raw files in the Atomos, and then when you do your switching, you're creating an EDL, so that's going to be more for high-end multi-camera television production in a tablet, because, they're like 80% of the way there.
Oh, they are. Yeah, it's crazy. Being able to apply a LUT, if we're doing a film shoot or something, and we've already gone through the procedure of actually saying, okay, we do some test shooting, say, and we're in the environments that we're going to use, the type of lighting and everything. We go back and we develop a look through color grading. Then we save that look out and pop it into a monitor so that every time we go and film, we already see what it's going to look like in the end. It allows us to light it much better and to block it and do different things where we can actually see what we're going to get in the final image. Kind of like the old days when I used to shoot a lot of 4x5 and some 8x10 transparencies. And, we didn't, of course, you had no digital replication of that to where you could see what you're getting at the time. You almost had to say, okay, let's just the spot meter this and spot meter this, and that's really where it should be. And then, your guessing game. But when Polaroids came out, we were kind of like, oh, and Polaroids have been around for a long time, but I put a Polaroid on my 4x5 back and take a shot and just know that it's going to be more contrasting, more saturated, but at least get me in ballpark. But now with what we can do is we can go back and record with that same depth of quality and everything because of the raw recordings and see what we're getting at the same time with the LUT. It's not like a Polaroid. It's actually what you're going to get unless you do further color grading. So, that would be great. Anthony, you're on it, man.
I think, the opportunity is there. If I were to make a call, I would say Atomos is going to be number 3 to jump into this pond. And, because they already have a 4 camera with the 4 buttons on the bottom for their small recorder. They have the technology. They just haven't built the operating system around also doing titles and things like that.
And I think what happens a lot of times is when as you become a very large company, you go with a mission statement and you try to stay with that mission statement. And I'm sure theirs is handling broadcast video, things that matter. So for them to take a dive into this is going to take a little bit of moving. It's going to be moving into a new direction or starting a new division, which allows them to cater to more prosumers and consumers, because at the price you can get in on a YOLO box or the right YOLO box. Okay, Mage Pro and the Ultra are fairly expensive, for a consumer to get into. But if you did want to, and you say, I would like to, and this is what I think is really cool. You say, okay, I'm starting out, and I love what's going on here. I'd like to live stream my, weddings and, let's say, dance recitals and other recitals. At $1,000 or $1,200, whatever it is, if you buy the Mage Well or you buy the YOLO Box Pro or Ultra, you can do, let's say, 3 of those and pay it back. And then you have this tool that does nothing more than give you happiness and make you more money. I think it's great. Looking at an investment thing, 3 jobs, it's paid for, well paid for. So, and that's at $500 a piece. I don't know really what a lot of people are charging, other than I've just bid on a couple things myself and got them, because I don't do a lot of small live streaming. It's more for corporations like you. But anyhow. Yeah, just some thoughts there.
You're very right. It comes down to, for the independent producer, return on investment, and if these devices cost, let's just say round number, $1,500, and that's part of the whole scope of the project. You've got your camera operators, your cameras. Maybe somebody's mixing audio, maybe you're getting house audio and things like that, so part of that total cost goes to the rental of the control room, I used to always call it, but at the same time, if you were getting into this and it's like, well, I need a decently spec'd laptop to run vMix or, OBS or something like that, you're going to pay the same price, and then you need a hardware interface to capture the multiple cameras in. And then, so you're already, your cost is actually going to be the cost of a YOLO Box Ultra or the Magewell and more.
Yeah.
So it's not like these devices cost more because they're compact and integrated. They're actually, in some ways, cheaper, a lower cost of entry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Every time you have to add a device, then you're dealing with more cost. And I don't like costs these days. I'm getting too old to keep spending. At some point in time, you've got to start saving money to survive on when you get old and ugly like me. So,
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, I was okay. When I started putting this up here, I looked at the monitor down here and I go, what filters do I have, man? It needs some help because this is not working for me. I put the filter on it just blurred the ugly. So whatever.
Hey, I don't know if you saw, I spoke with Vicky Komorowski.
Yeah, I literally was just watching that like just 10 minutes before we did this thing. That's hilarious. That's awesome. First time I got to see her.
Yeah, and she's a YOLO Box user, but she's got a great amount of spunk and and to do what she's doing and love it and be active in an area where there aren't other people doing it. It isn't like she's got a big community of event streamers. She says she searches Google, she searches around. She's the only one doing weddings and events live streamed in Western Australia, and she's in her 70s. And then at the end of the interview, she starts talking about, and she wants to do life stories, and she's like still forward looking. And I was just like,
gumption. Yeah, that's a go girl. I don't know if Vicky is. She doesn't seem ADD, but I'm thinking from the patterns. Okay, in the video industry, so many of us are ADD. Okay, we spin fast, we go forward, moving quick, and we also freak out when we got a task in front of us. There's a lot of things that come along with the ADD. But Vicky, at that age, she reminds me of me and my mom. We may be tired, and that wedding may be killing us, but we can't wait till we do the next one. For whatever reason, we just got this drive. I like Vicky a lot. She's like, She's like Mother YOLO Box, right? She'd been around the community for a while.
Yeah, and she's great, and her positive attitude is, her positive mindset is contagious.
Yeah.
And she's it's like young people, they get stuck by mental blocks, and people who have been around a little bit just say, well, I'll just find a way around it. And we should sit there and say, oh, that doesn't work. Okay, I'll just do something else, and I think that actually does serve us well in terms of, being able to just look at the bigger picture and keep going, even when it seems like, there's insurmountable problems, but you just, hey, listen, we're just going to keep doing something and we'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah. People say, I mean, they look at what I've got going on here. I literally have, I got the studio downstairs. That behind me is nothing more than a set wall and a TV behind a window to give it the appearance of, I'm in a shack. And then on the other side, I've got 26 3D printers that I've got making product, and then so on and so forth. But it's funny. They say, boy, I just can't believe how much you get done. And I go, it's for the fact that I'm stupid. I get excited about something and I don't look forward and say, wow, that's going to take way too much work, So I get a lot done, and I get myself in a lot of situations where I go, man, you need to take a break, bro. It's crazy.
Well,
it is what it is.
It is what it is. I think the energy, if you find something you really like to do or something that interests you, you don't sit there and think of it as work, and you don't think of it as a drudge that you just, oh, why am I doing this? Oh, I hate it. You're really interested in it, and the time flies by. You don't think of every hour that you're putting into it. You're invested in it, and you're excited. And I think that all plays well to, finding what you're interested in, and then finding that, I don't want to say passion, but, finding that thing that really does excite you, and then plow into that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, this kind of going off into personal realms, but for a lot of us who are in the video industry, we get excited about things. A lot of us are very, very much alike because, an accountant is not going to give a darn about what I'm doing. He's never going to want to do a video camera. He pretty much looks at me and goes, what's wrong with you? Why don't you like numbers? Well, I'm the same way with numbers. I was like, why do you like numbers? But it's one of those things, and I've really looked into this, we almost have to come back and go, what are we natural to? I hate seeing kids who are, they have specific trades or skills, and they have the ability to really get excited about certain things, but we push them in so hard into these things that they can never do. I can't do paperwork. I mean, taxes to me, that's like putting a fire all over me. I roast, I burn, I die, right? Thank goodness I got a wife that can handle some of that stuff. But it's like we need to start back early in life and really assess what each individual child's like, so that we can give them the right path, the right tools to go to, and then stop doing what, I wasn't a bad person whatsoever. I was really behaving, and I tried hard. But when it came to school, I stank. I was a C average. Well, I was a bottom of C average, and I tried hard. And in doing that, I was told I was a bad child, or not a bad child, but I was a bad student. Well, in that situation, you kind of capture that and say, I'm a bad child. So that kind of runs all the creativity and the forward thrust that you would have if you just simply did what was so natural to you. And a lot of ADD people run up to that. They run up against that, where they're said to be the bad child. Well, it's just that you're trying to put me into tasks that I don't do well, so you're proving that I'm a bad person, when you shouldn't be proving that. You should actually be doing stuff, providing opportunities that I'm good at, and become an Einstein. People who, they flunked out of school, but that's not what they did well. They used this thing, or they used these things so much better. So, okay, that's my rant. I'm done. Let's get back to the computers and videos and all that.
I'm going to pick up on your rant and actually agree with you, because, I remember seeing, somebody saying, it's like, well, listen, if you are making me do something that I'm not good at, or in a way that I'm not good at processing information. It's like asking a human to fly, asking a bird to walk. It's asking or as we talked about the tools, the wrong tool for the task. You know,
Exactly.
I'm good at certain things. My story is, I went to college. I was certain I was going to be an electrical engineer because I like taking things apart.
Yes.
And after the first year of that, and we got deep into like calculus and, you know, very abstract stuff. And I was like, dude, I am not doing good at this. And, you know, the counselor was like, you know, you're smart enough, you could do this, but there's going to be less and less people like you the further you go. And so they recommended film and video or technical writing. And here I am decades later. I am still doing film and video, and I do technical writing for Streaming Media Producer, where I explain technology to people who don't have that expertise. So it's like I'm not an engineer, but I'm on the edge of that, making
I get it.
the technical relatable to lay people.
It's so odd how that works when you listen to what you do well and you follow your passions. You know, sometimes we have to modify because sometimes our passions aren't, you know, career oriented or they don't provide us a living. But my brother, I used to refer to my brother as the smart guy, right? I mean, he is engineer all the way. He is really smart. But guess what? I loved what he talked about. We had conversations left and right. All except for like you, that math thing, that'll turn my brain inside out. But there's a certain amount of it works for me. And as I went through my career, I suddenly found myself doing engineer type things. You know, I invented things, and I've got things on the market. Actually, when I was 6 years old, I was taking these little Hot Wheel cars that had electric motors in them, pulling them apart and doing all kinds of crap with them. And if you've ever heard of like the string trimmer, which they originally called the weed eater, I made the very first one that I know of when I was age 6, and that was 10 years before the guy who actually manufactured it and made millions. So I've been doing that kind of thing a long time. It was just never recognized that I had that kind of a trait. And now I look at what I do, and you know, I can literally look at a product. Or I could, let's say if I wanted to reverse engineer it, I could easily do that. But more often than not, I come up with a need, which I do all the time. I'm frustrated with things because it takes too long or whatever, or it just doesn't make it easy enough for me. And I will design it. And through the years, I've done a lot of those. And suddenly people are, I mean, all alone, they were like, where'd you get that? I go, in my garage. And they would be frustrated. So finally my son said, hey, put one on Kickstarter and see what it does. In 2 days, I had $27,000, and it basically put me into the product manufacturing business. It's weird and wacky, dude. And sometimes I go, you know what? I'd make a darn good janitor, you know? I'm just too overwhelmed with it all. Anyhow, try to bounce off of that one, man.
I think, you know, for people who do really get into a particular field, and I don't even, you know, it doesn't even matter what field it is. It could be childcare, it could be, you know, public service or something like that. If it is something that you are, that does allow you to focus your energy, you're going to see gaps. You're going to see opportunities, and you're going to want to try and fill them or solve them, no matter what they are and what field. You know, because I think that's just the nature of us as problem solvers. You know, it's like if you're a musician, and it's like, well, I just watched a video the other day. This guitarist, you know, who does classical guitar, made a 3-neck guitar, and the bottom neck was in reverse. I don't know how you even build that.
Oh my gosh!
So as you went from close to far away, it actually it goes up that way, and I'm like, I don't understand how you built that, but he is a musician who is into music and saw a need, and he built the solution.
Yeah. You know, too much of the time we simply take what we have and we use it, and we settle. And I think that's probably the worst things. And I filmed in New Zealand quite a few times. And one of the guys I met down there, became a friend, came up here, and he was involved in manufacturing something, and we were just talking, and through some stuff that he had heard, he had come up with one of the most important words in the American and other languages is the why. Because too often we just go, oh, you know, we never ask why. And why leads if you ask why multiple times, why do I have bad grades? You ask why, and you get to a certain level. But then if you ask why again, you reach another level, and you find the root of the problem. So if we do that in our situations like this, when we're doing broadcast engineering, rather than freaking out and going, I've got a problem, and suddenly going into the, like for me, the ADD thing of, oh no, I don't know where to even start, and I don't start. Well, I've learned that if I stop and I eliminate that and I go why, and I ask the why in a kind of a backward, track it back like we did here when I had an issue with sound, I get to that answer. But it's even like we have a new intersection here in town, and it's a diverse diamond something, whatever. If you look at it, and I've filmed it from the air, and if you look at the designs, which are usually on paper, and it's kind of like looking at it from the air, it'll freak your mind out, and you will hate the designer, you'll hate who was involved in bringing the project to town. But if you just go out there and drive it and go with the flow of the traffic, no big deal. But most people, just like I would say conspiracy theorists, they don't have enough information to go on. And suddenly they draw conclusions that really don't make sense. They're built off of fear. This is kind of way out there and wacky, but we as television camera gurus and everything, we need to step back and rather than letting things overwhelm us, start doing that why in a progressive order. Why based on this, why based on that, and soon we'll get to the original problem. And you know this because I think you're probably darn natural to it, aren't you?
Well, to an extent, I think, but I also like trying, as part of the gearhead nature is like trying to find workarounds and solutions. Like I know where I want to go. I don't know how to get there. So what pieces do I need to go to get to where I want to go? And finding a solution to get there is what my concept path usually travels.
It kind of drives you. See, my son's very similar. He loves getting into stuff and figuring out why it's broken or how to fix it and all that. And me, up until more recently, I was just a freak out. My sissy, I like, oh no, but not anymore. I've gotten to that point where that word why really helps me out. It helps me out in a lot of ways. So, anyhow.
Well, I think I don't want to keep you too much, and I want to thank you for this conversation because I think it really does cover a lot, not so much in terms of technology, but also understanding, like you said, the why that drives us, and the why would we pick a particular field, finding something that we like to do, that energizes us, that excites us, can give us the why that we want to keep going and keep doing that work, even though it may take a little bit more time than we expect. Yeah.
The bridge isn't built in a day, that's for sure. Yeah, and the frustrations that happen along the way. I try to tell people, because I had to learn this myself. Let's say you're going up a stair. Excuse me, cold for a month. I hate this. But let's say you're going up the stairs and one of the stairs breaks. You don't turn around and go back to the bottom. You figure out how to get around that. But most of us in our life situations, we see, we call them a failure. It was like that situation there is a failure on one of the stairs. And it's not a failure if you figure out how to get around it. It's actually the next step to becoming successful. And so we can get rid of the word failure in our society. I think that's going to be a really great thing because it's going to, failure brings you down. Workarounds and things like that become successes. If you learn how to work around something, you've got a success. So get excited about the success and forget about the failure. I think that's a real important thing for a lot of the kids and for a lot of adults too.
Absolutely. Well, Danny, thank you very much for this conversation. I appreciate you. I appreciate the things you make, and I appreciate your voice out there in the industry as a fellow streamer, as a content producer, and as a problem solver. So thank you very much. And
Anthony, it's been good to talk with you, buddy.
Again, thank you to Danny for spending some time with us. I hope you were able to take away a few ideas, a few concepts, and maybe apply them to your production, to your mindset, and they will help you move forward. My name is Anthony Barocas for Stream Tech. Thanks for watching.